There are places that stay with you long after you've packed your bags and moved on, places that whisper your name when the world grows too loud. For me, that place was my Aunt Addie's house and the woods behind it. After a heartbreak I didn't see coming and a life that no longer felt like mine, I left New York City and returned to the one place that ever made me feel whole. I thought I was running away, but I was actually going home. This is the story of how the trees remembered me before I remembered myself, of whispers in the night, of healing in the quiet, of becoming soft and strong at the same time. Welcome to The Whispering Woods. Chapter 1: The House on Lookout Avenue. When I was a little girl, I spent summers in a small town in North Carolina, in a house that always smelled like cornbread and warm pine. Aunt Addie's house. It sat quiet and solid on Lookout Avenue, tucked between two tall magnolia trees and backed right up to a thick patch of forest the locals called Whispering Woods. As a child, that place felt like magic. Aunt Addie made sweet tea that could cure any bad mood, and she never let anyone go to bed without a hug, even if she fussed at you all day. The nights were quiet, the stars visible and proud, and the woods always sang at dusk. Soft rustles, whispery winds, as if the trees were trading secrets. Now I'm 23. I grew up in the Bronx, a place of above ground rail lines and sidewalk vendors that had everything were the norm. I thought I had it all figured out: a job, a boyfriend, and an apartment I could barely afford. But when it ended and ended badly, something inside me cracked wide open. I felt empty, lost, and unloved, like I had given everything and gotten absolutely nothing in return. So I packed what I could fit in the back of my little car and drove south, chasing something I wasn't sure still existed. I didn't call ahead. I didn't know if Aunt Addie would even want me. But when I knocked on her door, she opened it, looked me up and down, and said, "Well, you look like yesterday's worry. Come on in." That first night, she made turkey wings, rice, and spinach, poured me a glass of sweet tea, and said nothing about the tears I tried to hide. She just handed me one of Big Mama's old quilts and pointed to the guest room. "You remember how to sleep in peace, don't you?" she asked. I didn't answer, but I hoped the answer was still somewhere in those whispering woods. Chapter 2: Where the Trees Remember. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of cornbread and country bacon. Aunt Addie greeted me with a cup of coffee and a raised eyebrow. "You sleep or just lay there thinking all night?" She didn't ask for details. That was her way. She gave you space, but you always knew she was paying attention. After breakfast, I wandered outside. The air was different here, not just cleaner, but softer. The breeze moved like it had somewhere to be, and the sun shone in golden slants through the trees. I stood at the edge of the woods, my toes just touching the grass where Aunt Addie's yard ended and the forest began. As a child, I'd played here for hours. I remembered pretending the trees could talk, that they had names and stories and secrets just for me. Back then, I believed the woods knew how I felt: when I was happy, when I was afraid, when I missed my mother too much to speak it out loud. Now, all grown up and hollowed out by love lost, I felt that same pull, like the trees were calling me back, not just to play, but to heal. I stepped just beyond the tree line. The woods seemed to welcomed me with a hush, as if holding its breath. The sounds of the world faded behind me. No cars, no voices, just the rustle of leaves and the faintest murmur, a sound like a memory trying to speak. I wandered for a while. I didn't go far, just enough to feel surrounded by green and shadow. A squirrel darted up a tree. A bird called out once and was answered by another. Everything felt alive in a way that made me feel more alive, too. Then I saw it: a tree with a thick, twisting trunk. Its bark was carved with something faded. Initials. Mine. I traced the letters with my fingers. A plus L. Addie and me. I had no memory of carving it, but I knew it was mine. A forgotten act of belonging. Near the base of the tree, tucked into the roots, was a single feather. It was gray and soft like it had just fallen. I picked it up without thinking. Behind me, the wind stirred. Welcome back, it seemed to say. When I returned to the house, Aunt Addie didn't look up from her crossword puzzle. The woods remember you, she said. I didn't ask how she knew. Some things you just accept. That night, I took out my journal, the one I hadn't written in since the breakup. I wrote 3 lines. I am not who I was. I am not who I thought I had to be. But maybe I'm still someone worth knowing. Then I fell asleep to the sound of the trees whispering outside my window, as if agreeing with every word. Chapter 3. The Clearing That Wasn't There. The following week, I began to walk deeper into the woods. At first, I told myself I was just stretching my legs, clearing my mind. But the truth was, I was searching for something I couldn't name. One afternoon, I took a path I didn't remember from childhood. It curved like a question mark, winding between cedar and oak. The deeper I went, the more the air felt charged, not electric, but intentional. Like the woods were waiting. That's when I found the clearing. It was small, round, and ringed by stones. Sunlight streamed through an opening in the trees above, turning the mossy floor into a quiet patch of gold. In the center stood a wooden bench, worn and smooth. I walked toward it slowly, heart thudding like I was approaching something sacred. When I sat down, I noticed words carved into the wood. You are not hard to love. The tears came before I could stop them. I didn't cry pretty. I cried like I hadn't let myself feel anything in months, maybe years. All the words I had swallowed, all the apologies I'd given just for existing too loudly or needing too much, they poured out with every tear. I stayed there until the shadows stretched long across the ground. That night, just as I was about to fall asleep, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message. From him. I've been thinking about you, it said. I miss you. Maybe we just needed space. My heart stuttered. I knew I shouldn't respond, but my fingers hovered over the screen. He followed up quickly. You know it wasn't all my fault. You made things hard sometimes, but I'm willing to try again. I stared at the message, every muscle tight. For a split second, the old ache returned, wanting to be chosen, wanting to believe that maybe he had changed. Maybe he meant it this time. But when I closed my eyes, I saw the bench in the clearing. I heard the trees whispering, You are not hard to love. I didn't respond. That night, I dreamed of myself at 7 years old, running through these woods in bare feet, laughing. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't ashamed. She looked at me and smiled like she knew I'd find my way back. When I woke up, the words from the bench echoed in my chest. You are not hard to love. Chapter 4. Echoes of What Was Lost. The next days were quieter, not empty, just tender. I moved slower. I noticed more. The way the sun hit the floorboards in the morning. The way Aunt Addie hummed gospel songs while she cooked. The way the trees outside my window always seemed to lean toward me. But healing isn't tidy, he messaged again. A voice note this time, his voice, familiar and practiced. I was wrong, he said. I should have fought harder. I still love you. But you were too emotional, too much sometimes. You know that, right? I listened to it 3 times. Each time, I felt myself shrinking. Then I went to the woods. The path to the clearing seemed longer that day, the air thick with silence. I sat on the bench expecting comfort, but instead, the quiet pressed in on me. And still, I stayed. Because something in me knew this kind of silence wasn't meant to hurt. It was meant to hold. I closed my eyes and whispered aloud, I wasn't too much. I was just too much for someone unwilling to grow. The wind shifted, leaves fluttered, the bench stayed solid beneath me. That night, Aunt Addie found me on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes red. You look like you're trying to wring the truth out of your bones, she said, sitting beside me. I thought I was past this, I whispered. She shook her head. Healing don't come in straight lines. Let the woods hold it. You don't have to carry all that alone. And I believed her. Chapter 5: The Path She Couldn't See Before. It was early April when the dogwoods bloomed. Tiny white blossoms freckled the edges of the trees, like the woods were waking up too, and something inside me stretched open with them. I started baking with Aunt Addie, just simple things: cornbread, peach cobbler, molasses cookies. We laughed more. Sometimes she shared stories about her younger days. I learned we had more in common than I thought. She told me about her first love, how she'd left behind her own heartbreak long before I was born. She told me how she chose this life, this land, and made it hers. We'd sit on the porch at sunset, sipping sweet tea, and I'd realize how much wisdom lived in her silences. One afternoon, I asked her, "Why didn't you ever leave?" She gave me a look. Baby, I didn't stay because I had to. I stayed because peace don't always come dressed in ambition. Sometimes it wears overalls and smells like magnolia. And I kept walking. The woods showed me new paths, ones I had never seen before. Little trails tucked between ferns, deer tracks that led to tiny creeks, places that felt like secrets. One day, the path led me back to the clearing. But this time, the words on the bench had changed. You're allowed to bloom here. I sat for a long time, hand resting on the smooth wood, the words sinking into me like sun into soil. My phone buzzed. Another message from him. I miss you. I keep thinking about how good we were. I've been working on myself. Maybe we could talk. I read the message twice. Then I opened a new one and typed, "Thank you for the memories, but I've found something better than what we had. I found peace, and I've found myself. I value myself too much now to return to something that cost me so much. I truly hope you find what you're looking for." Then I hit send. No shaking hands. No doubt. I took out my journal and wrote, "I think I am becoming someone I like." And for once, I didn't second guess it. Chapter 6: Becoming Someone Soft and Strong. Summer came slow and full. I wore sundresses without wondering if anyone was watching. I started a writing workshop at the library, helping kids tell their stories. I danced barefoot in the kitchen when Aunt Addie played Sam Cooke. I felt like myself, maybe even better. The woods were still my sanctuary, but I didn't go there to cry anymore. I went to listen, to thank them. One afternoon, I left a note under the bench in the clearing. It said, "Thank you for showing me I am enough." And I swear the trees rustled in response. "Homegrown now," Aunt Addie said one evening, handing me a slice of pie. "Didn't think you'd stay, but I'm glad you did." "Me too," I said, and I meant it with everything in me. Epilogue: 18 months later. I still live on the edge of Whispering Woods, not in Aunt Addie's house, but in a little cabin just a short walk away. I built it with help from neighbors and a lot of YouTube videos. I teach full time now, and I write in the early mornings when the woods are still and the sky is pink with promise. Sometimes I'm alone, sometimes I'm not. But either way, I know I'm never truly lonely. I still walk the paths, still visit the bench. The words change sometimes. They always know what I need. Last week it said, "You are the light you were waiting for." I smiled and whispered back, "I know." Then I walked home, the wind warm on my shoulders, the trees singing